Decorative tiles are one of the most well-known symbols of Portugal in the world today. Tiles decorate the exterior facades of buildings, interior floors and walls, and even stoves and chimneys. Over the centuries, tiles have served different purposes, depicted different objects and scenes, and told different stories. The history behind the tiles of Portugal makes the relationship between these prized possessions and their country that much more important. The manor house and chapel that are located on the grounds of the U.S. Embassy in Lisbon, Portugal, contain religious depictions as well as motifs significant to the culture of Portugal, developed out of blue and white tiles. Dating back to the 17th century, these tiles are quite delicate as well as expensive. Behind the secure walls of the U.S. Embassy, these tiles have been preserved and protected. But how did they end up in a 17th century manor house and chapel? The history of tiles begins in the early 8th century with the arrival of the Moors on the Iberian Peninsula that radically altered and influenced the societal structure and political legislation of the region. These territories witnessed Islamic influence for over 8 centuries, which inevitably reflected upon the history and global economy, in addition to its emerging arts and culture. The term Andalusia was used to portray the geographies that represent and designate the predominance of the peninsula. By the 11th century, early Christian endeavors in the reconquest of the Iberian territories turned Andalusia into a region that focused on ideation. These regions had frequently been used to symbolize iconic centers for flourishing arts and cultures. Andalusia had been historically portrayed to be amongst the most substantial and prominent centers for the production of azuelo tiles. The provinces of Spain, such as Granada and Seville, have been widely known to be a node for the production of Hispano-Moorish tile work. Spain developed the name azulejo for a particular style of tile. An azulejo is a tin-glazed ceramic tile, meaning it is a tile finished with a lead glaze and then treated with a tin oxide to make the glaze opaque, white, and ideal for painting. During the 14th century, a radical shift within the artistic production of azulejo tiles led to the creation of alicautados. Alicautados are polygonal-shaped tiles systematically arranged in an intricate geometrical pattern. This style is further accompanied by a distinct pattern of ornamentality called mudéjar, which describes a hybrid integration of European and Moorish influences in tiles, as evidently found in those of Seville and Granada. Portugal imported its first azulejo tiles from Seville as a request from King Manuel I's visit to Seville in Alhambra and Granada during the 15th century. King Manuel's fascination with the iconic tilework found in these locations led to the creation of the Arab Room that can be seen in his palace in Sintra. Many similarities can be found between this room and the tiles in Alhambra. The mid-16th century marks the early beginnings of Portugal's own tilework production. It shifted towards the Majolica style, a less geometric and more pictorial tile-making technique which is significant to Portugal today. The tile panel across the chapel of São Rauk in Lisbon, developed by Francisco de Matos in 1584, is a good example of the 16th century tile production in Portugal. The panel expands on the prominent use of Majolica techniques in addition to the depiction of figurative themes and Mannerist ornaments. This 1580 azulejo panel, called Nossa Senhora da Vida, located in the National Tile Museum in Lisbon, is another example of this style of tile production. It symbolizes an iconic representation of biblical scenes and religious narratives that was popular in Portuguese art during the 16th century. Tile production in Portugal during the 17th century portrays iconographies of overseas expansions through a context of exoticness towards the New World. These tile works have been characterized to fictitiously integrate both European culturism and the exotic landscapes of the new lands. The leopard hunt tile panel, developed between 1650 and 1675, and also found in the National Tile Museum, exemplifies a 17th century Portuguese cultural production of azulejo tiles. An absence of abstract tile ornamentation occurred to the mid to late 17th century when Portugal began to import blue and white tiles from the Netherlands, a process of tile production influenced by the Ming and Yuan dynasties of China. These particular tiles tended to be developed in two common types: large panels depicting a historical scene, or individual tiles with a single motif, most commonly figurative or floral-like. The earthquake of 1755 brought on new challenges, and tiles began to take on a more utilitarian role in both palaces and gardens. They were beginning to be mass-produced during the rise of the Industrial Revolution. The first half of the 19th century introduced the installment of tiles on the facades of buildings, including domestic residences. This technique was introduced by Brazilian immigrants to Portugal. Classic productions at the time consisted of high-relief tiles in one or two colors. Today, tiles of many varieties can be seen throughout Lisbon, both historic and new. The importance of tiles to the culture of Portugal can be traced through history, and the preservation of historic tilework is fundamentally important to Portugal and the United States government in preserving and caring for the tiles of the U.S. Embassy property.